Welcome to SWK 899, the MSW Capstone course. This is Dr. Yvonne Ruiz, and I'm going to be talking about the feedback paper in this screencast. So think of the feedback paper as feedback process that you're going to be documenting. You're going to have a specific in-depth case analysis that you are going to provide feedback to. And your role also is to help facilitate the discussion on that particular case. Since you will also be familiar with the case, you will have read it thoroughly, you will have read the student analysis thoroughly, and so you're prepared to provide your perspectives and your thinking on the case as well. So for the written part, you're going to provide written feedback to one writer of an in-depth case analysis based on their format. So your feedback is going to assist the writer by providing another point of view, by providing another perspective, by thinking through what are contextual factors, internal and external issues. Are there other strategy options and practice approaches that can also be considered, and so on for each section of the format. So your feedback is also going to help the class discussion by including the additional analysis, by contributing your critical thinking, and by asking questions and moving the conversation forward in the Socratic method that we've already talked about. So here are some suggestions on how to provide feedback that's beneficial, that's strengths-based, but that is also critical thinking and analytical. So first bullet point on the left-hand side. Begin by reviewing each section of the in-depth case analysis that you've been assigned. So read it through, and you might want to approach it section by section, or you might want to look at it more holistically. That is completely up to you and what strategy you want to use. However, you are required to identify specific and concrete comments and suggestions. So while you may want to say, good job, this was really good, it was really interesting, it was well written, include why. What about the analysis was good, was helpful, was insightful? What about the writing was made it well written? Did it make sense? Was it consistent? Was it logical? So on and so forth. So include information on gaps that the in-depth case author may have overlooked. What do you pick up on the case that you think is really important? What are the issues? What are the contextual factors? What are other problem areas? What do you think is happening in the case? How do you make sense of it? That needs to be taken into account. What are your suggestions regarding the content of the paper? What can be included? And maybe, what did the author pay attention to that you think is not as important as another aspect of the case? Is the paper coherent? Does it make sense? So you want to also look at that. Do you agree with the problem? And then do you agree with the way the problem is analyzed? So is the problem formulation accurate? Is it helpful? Does it help you to think about the case in a way that helps you to understand what's happening? Then continuing on with the bullets on the right-hand side. Are the contextual issues, both internal and external, adequately addressed? Is something left out? Is there too much attention paid to something that's not as important? Is there an adequate range of appropriate strategies? Or are they all similar? Are they distinct enough? Do they capture possibilities? What are your thoughts on the research section, on the case to cause policy section, on the diversity, equity, and inclusion section? Does the recommendation fit the original problem formulation? And just provide general assistance, feedback with the writing, including grammar, spelling, sentence structure. Now, these are all suggestions. This is not a format that you have to follow. So with the feedback, you need to think through what you're reading, and you need to plan for how are you going to capture the feedback that you want to give. And you're going to do this both written, specific paper, which is a few pages, I don't know, 3, 4, maybe 5, depending on how much you have to say. I would say, though, if it's less than 3 pages, you might want to reread it and think about, what you're putting together. And then also in the classroom discussion, you're going to further the discussion by providing your feedback, by giving your perspective. What jumped out at you as important? What do you think of the dilemmas and what's presented in the case? And also, there is another tool in the syllabus and on Canvas, and the tool is the in-depth case analysis assessment checklist. So this tool is what I'm going to use to grade the in-depth case analysis and to provide some feedback. It's a rubric, but it looks at each section of the in-depth case format and kind of is a guide to the information that's contained or what could be contained. So you can use that assessment checklist as a way of looking at, well, does this section meet the criteria that's outlined on the assessment checklist? Does it match the required content? Does it extend the information? And again, does it make sense? So I would suggest that when you're doing your feedback, that you look at both the whole paper and you look at each section. It would be helpful for you to read the case first and read the articles supporting the case and to come to some of your own conclusions. And that way you'll be prepared to think critically about the in-depth case analysis that you're reading. So I hope this has been helpful. I look forward to the work in this course, and I look forward to seeing you.